Well, welcome back to session 6, and this week we're going to continue to look more in depth at the remaining 4 dimensions of the species 7-dimension model that we began to look at last week. And of course, last week we had a look into the social, the physical, and the emotional dimensions. And this week we're going to have a look at the career, intellectual, environmental, and spiritual dimensions. And so you'll recall from last week that I mentioned that even though here we're dealing with 7 dimensions, and when we look at the Travis and Ryan model, we're dealing with 12 dimensions with multiple sub-dimensions, those multiple dimensions could still fit here into these 7 dimensions. And so we looked at that in session 5 last week in the tutorial activity, where you were asked to go back to the wellness wheel that you completed in session 4, I think it was, and then fit those dimensions into a framework for what you were going to address in relation to the social, physical, and emotional dimensions here in species. So we're going to continue that today, that theme today, in the tutorial as well. So the first one we're going to look at today is career wellness. And you'll recall that career wellness is a term that's used in place of occupational health and safety, or occupational health, to make sure we clearly differentiate the two. So work health and safety was traditionally focused on workplace hazards and injury reporting, and then more recently it expanded its scope to look at things such as bullying and harassment and psychological injury. But when we're talking about career wellness, we're actually talking about a much more holistic approach to our work life. And it's described by Roscoe as a level of satisfaction and enrichment gained by one's work, and the extent to which one's occupation allows for the expression of one's value. So here, when we're talking about career wellness, we're talking more about doing work that is meaningful, gives us a sense of accomplishment, and it's work that fits with our values. So for us who are learning fields of complementary medicine, this speaks usually quite strongly to us, because it is, usually people will come in and they will study and they'll qualify in fields of complementary medicine because it's something that they're passionate about, it's something that they believe in, it fits with their values of how they want to live and thrive and prosper within their own life. And so being able to then learn skills that you can use to help other people achieve that has meaning, and it fits with one's values. And so those are the things we're talking about in terms of career wellness. And of course, if a person was working in a job where they didn't feel fulfilled, they didn't feel like their job had any meaning, they didn't feel like they were accomplishing anything, we can start to understand that that person probably isn't going to thrive in that type of a position. And so career wellness can refer to both paid and unpaid work, or volunteer work. So obviously during our career years, we're building our careers, we're earning our wage, earning our salary, whatever it is, we're taking it home, we're buying houses, buying cars, having families, paying rent, putting food on the table. The financial remuneration for us is obviously very important, and it certainly has its place in a whole holistic wellness framework. But if the only reason we're in a job is to get money, then it's not a very holistic approach. Now, some people are in that situation. They've got bills that they have to pay, they've got a family they have to look after, they have to work, they have to earn money, and they may find themselves in a job that they don't particularly like, that they're not really fulfilled by, but they can't afford to give that job up because they need the money. And so they can often feel quite stuck. And so, if you're feeling unfulfilled and unhappy in the job that you're doing, and you don't feel like you're deriving any meaning, but you're spending 8 hours a day in that job, it's going to have an impact on other elements of your total wellness. And so that needs to be addressed within the holistic framework of everything that we're doing. Now, if we look at the other end of the spectrum in terms of retirees who have worked throughout their career and now they've retired, um, they that can have a significant impact on their career wellness. And that doesn't mean that career wellness has to be put on the back burner. If you consider a person who's been a teacher their whole life, helping kids learn, and then they've retired from that. Well, they may choose to volunteer, let's say, with you know, a, a, a community organisation that's working with kids who have learning difficulties, or with a migrant service who is working with people who need to learn English, for example, and they may choose to volunteer with these organisations and lend those long career skills that they've had into some volunteer work, which still gives meaning to what they're doing, and that's a really important aspect of the of them doing something that continues to give them meaning and value, that works with their values, even though they've retired. Or it may be they go and do something completely different. They may say, no, I've done all my work as a teacher, I'm over that. I'm going to go and volunteer with this community organisation that plants trees, because that's something I've really wanted to do all my life and not had the opportunity because I've been involved in my career. But now I've got time. Or it may be they just want to go on an extended holiday. Whatever works for them, so long as they've got that meaning there. Remembering that career wellness is really talking about those elements of perma theory, where we have positive emotions, engagement, positive relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Those are all tied up here in career wellness. It's being able to contribute unique talents and attributes to the workplace community. So no workplace operates by one person, really. It requires a collective social contribution from everybody. Everybody has something to bring to the table, and everybody adds to the value of that workplace community. It's the extent to which one's work is meaningful and represents an expression of one's values. I think this is something that, as complementary medicine students or complementary medicine practitioners, this really speaks quite clearly to us, because for the most part, people will come into complementary medicine and study complementary medicine because they believe in complementary medicine, because they value complementary medicine within their own lives, and they really want to be able to train and qualify to be able to use their complementary medicine work to help other people. It really is an expression of meaning and value to you as a complementary medicine practitioner. And so that will hopefully bring you a state of career wellness as well. And an important part of career wellness is this balance between occupational and other commitments, or what we often refer to as the work-life balance. People can really love their job, and so they get tied up into it. They get involved in their work, and they immerse themselves in that. But they can do so to the detriment of other parts, and it causes problems in their family, or they end up losing contact with friends and family, etc. And so, because they're so involved within that wellness, and so even though they may be doing work that is valuable and meaningful to them, and something that they really love and something that they're really passionate about, they need to be able to express that in a balanced manner so they're not neglecting other elements. Remember, it's a holistic approach. It's just one dimension of this whole holistic framework. And if we're putting all of our efforts into this one dimension and we're neglecting the other dimensions, then we're not living a wellness orientated lifestyle to its full potential. So our work should not define us or dictate who we are. It should simply be an expression of our talents. So it's your whole existence, the whole identity of who you are is not your work. It should really be the other way around. It should be you bring your talents and your skills and your work, your attributes into the workplace, and you enrich that workplace through the presence of you. It's not that you give up your personal identity to take on your work. Um, and we see this in some people that their whole personality, their whole outlook is purely 100% only orientated by who they are at work. And when they're not at work, or when they're not within the persona of work, they find it very difficult to really engage and understand what's going on with people. Um, when our work becomes uninteresting or stressful or disruptive to our life and lifestyle, it drains our energy, and that can start to lead to burnout. So, having some degree of balance, being able to know that work's starting to take up a lot of time, work's very busy, it's a bit stressful at the moment, I've got all these projects I have to do. I'm just going to need to step out for a little while, get some space, just disconnect for a weekend so that next week I can come back and I can re-engage and really give everything back into that. Because even in a job that we absolutely love, we can still face stressors, and we can still get into busy times which really start to drain our energy. And we've got to learn to balance that out, remembering that we don't put all of our effort into a single dimension. We've got to put it into this complex framework. And being armed with effective strategies for dealing with that is really important to prevent that burnout. For me, it's weekend comes, I head for the forest. I put myself into nature. I just disconnect myself from the busyness of working in a big city and being surrounded by people and having to lead a fairly sedentary day sitting in front of screens. I disconnect from that by putting myself out there into this natural environment where I can just offload that stress and just bring myself back to a state of balance. And then I have the energy to come back the following week and re-engage.